One Instagram follow, that's all it took to send shockwaves through Indiana Fever's front office. And if you understand what it actually means, it should send a chill down the spine of every Caitlin Clark fan watching this offseason unfold. Sabrina Ionescu followed Lexi Hull on Instagram. Simple, quiet, deliberate. And if you think that's just social media noise, you haven't been paying close enough attention to how player recruitment actually works in the modern WNBA. Here's what's really happening. The New York Liberty are circling one of Indiana's most important rotation pieces, and the Fever are walking directly into a salary cap trap that could make it impossible to stop them. This isn't about a social media moment. This is about the financial architecture of Indiana's roster and whether Caitlin Clark's championship window gets built or buried in this single offseason. We are breaking down every layer of this situation today, from the rules that put Indiana at a disadvantage before negotiations even begin to the cap math that makes this genuinely scary, to what losing Lexi Hull actually means for the 3 most important years of Caitlin Clark's career. If this kind of analysis is what keeps you coming back, go ahead and hit that like button right now. It tells us you want more of this, and it helps us keep digging into exactly these kinds of stories. Let's start where this story actually begins. Not with the Instagram follow, but with Lexi Hull's contract status, because the moment you understand what restricted free agent actually means under WNBA rules, the whole picture snaps into focus in a way that should make Indiana fans genuinely uncomfortable. Restricted free agency sounds like protection. On the surface, it seems like Indiana gets to control the situation. They have the right to match any offer Hull receives, which means theoretically they can keep her no matter what. But that framing is dangerously misleading, and the competitor coverage on this story has largely glossed over why. Here's the actual mechanics. As a restricted free agent, Lexi Hull can take meetings with any franchise in the league. She can negotiate with teams that have cap space, she can receive formal offer sheets from competing organizations, and Indiana's only option at that point is to match the exact dollar figure. Not negotiate, not counter, not have a friendly conversation about a hometown discount or creative contract structure. Match the number or watch her leave. The rules do not allow for the middle ground that Indiana would desperately need. That distinction matters enormously, because what it means in practice is that the Fever cannot get out ahead of this. They cannot sit down with Hull before the open market and work out an arrangement that keeps her in Indiana at a number the team can actually afford. Once another team puts an offer sheet in front of her, Indiana is in a reactive position with zero flexibility. And New York, which is exactly the team Sabrina Ionescu plays for, absolutely has the cap space to make a compelling offer. Let's talk about what Hull's market value actually looks like, because this is where the stakes get concrete. Bridget Carleton just signed with the Minnesota Lynx for $1.4 million per year. Carleton and Hull occupy essentially the same tier of effectiveness. Both are elite 3 and D wings who bring championship-level intangibles to any rotation. Carleton is slightly better, but not dramatically so. They're playing the same role at a comparable level of impact. So if Carleton just reset the market at $1.4 million, what does that tell us about Hull's asking price? A reasonable estimate puts her somewhere between $800,000 and $1 million per year, maybe higher, depending on how many teams decide to compete for her. And here's the brutal reality for Indiana. Multiple franchises in this league can afford to offer her that kind of money. The Fever, given their current commitments, almost certainly cannot. This is the trap, and it didn't happen overnight. It is the direct result of years of roster construction decisions that are now colliding with a free agency market that has been fundamentally changed by Caitlin Clark's arrival in the league. Think about what Clark's presence has done to the financial ecosystem of women's basketball. Viewership records, attendance records, broadcast deal implications that are reshaping the entire CBA conversation. The WNBA's salary cap for 2025 is projected at approximately $1.46 million per team. The maximum individual salary sits around $241,000. These are numbers that made sense before the Clark era rewrote the economics of the sport, and they are numbers that are going to create painful decisions for every team in the league, but especially for Indiana. Because Indiana isn't just managing a roster. They are managing the most visible roster in women's basketball history, with the most valuable player in the sport locked into a rookie maximum contract. And every dollar of their cap space is already spoken for in ways that make adding Lexi Hull an almost mathematical impossibility. Walk through the committed money with me. Caitlin Clark is on her rookie max. It's a below-market deal right now, but it escalates. Aliyah Boston is on a rookie contract that is about to escalate significantly. She is an elite defensive anchor, and the Fever cannot let her walk. Kelsey Mitchell is hitting unrestricted free agency, not restricted. Unrestricted, which means Indiana has zero leverage to retain her if another team offers max money, and Mitchell is their second-best player. Then there is Alyssa Smith, a talented player who had a difficult 2024 season, whose efficiency and three-point shooting both declined, and who has generated trade interest that Indiana has not yet been able to convert into an actual deal. 4 significant contracts. 4 commitments eating up salary cap before the Fever even begin to think about Lexi Hull or Sophie Cunningham or anyone else on the perimeter. The math does not work. Not at Hull's likely market value, and that is before you factor in the Kelsey Mitchell wildcard, which could blow this entire situation wide open in ways that go well beyond losing a role player. Now let's look at what New York can actually put on the table, because the Liberty's cap situation is the other half of this equation, and it's far more favorable than most casual coverage has acknowledged. The Liberty enter this offseason with 3 max contract players: Sabrina Ionescu, Jonquel Jones, and Breanna Stewart. But here's the critical detail that changes the math. Stewart has reportedly indicated she would consider a $200,000 pay cut to keep the championship core together. Ionescu is likely taking a regular max rather than a supermax. Jones is in the same conversation. These are players who have already won a championship, have already maximized their individual earning potential elsewhere, and are now playing for legacy and titles. When veterans start taking pay cuts, it creates cap space, and the rest of New York's roster is composed almost entirely of reserved free agents, minimum contract players who either re-sign at the minimum or don't play in the WNBA. That's not a weakness, that's a deliberate construction strategy that gives the Liberty flexibility to add talent precisely in situations like this one. New York also enters 2025 with significant upgrades already lined up. Temi Fagbenle, a 6'1" center, is coming back and gives them interior size they lacked in the finals. Raquel Carrera is coming over from overseas, adding international talent to an already loaded roster. The reports about Merjantu Faustine Johannes potentially joining are circulating, though that remains unconfirmed. Rebecca Allen is a restricted free agent they can bring back at minimum cost. Nashalani Hamilton is in the same position. Kayla Thornton proved she is a reliable rotation piece on a minimum deal. Run that back. The Liberty can potentially run back their entire championship core, add multiple international talents, retain their key restricted free agents at minimum cost, and still have enough room in their cap structure to offer Lexi Hull somewhere between $800,000 and $1 million. Indiana cannot match that. Not with Mitchell's unrestricted free agency looming, not with Boston's contract escalating, not with Clark's rookie max going up, not with the Smith situation unresolved. The Fever are watching this play out from a position of almost zero leverage, and Sabrina Ionescu's Instagram follow was the first public signal that New York knows it. Before we go further, drop your prediction in the comments right now. Does Indiana match whatever offer Lexi Hull gets, or do they let her walk and bet on Sophie Cunningham to fill the void? The answers are going to be fascinating, and I genuinely want to know what this community thinks, because you have been ahead of the narrative on Indiana's roster issues all offseason. Let's dig into why losing Hull specifically. Not just any role player, but this one creates a problem that extends far beyond the immediate roster. The easy take is that Sophie Cunningham can replace her. Both are 3-and-D wings, both bring toughness and energy, both can hit the corner 3 and defend at a high level. But they're basically the same player framing misses something important about how rotation redundancy actually functions in championship basketball. Having 2 capable wings at that level gives Indiana a quality problem. They can match different opponents, rest each other strategically, and absorb foul trouble without dropping off. Losing one of them doesn't just reduce quantity, it reduces flexibility, durability, and the team's ability to adjust in playoff series when opponents make halftime corrections. There's also the question of what losing Hull signals to the rest of the league about Indiana's ability to compete for free agents going forward. Organizations develop reputations. When teams cannot retain their own restricted free agents, players they theoretically have leverage over, it sends a message about financial health and front office competency. That message travels. It affects who wants to come to Indianapolis and who considers it a stopping point rather than a destination. If Lexi Hull walks, the realistic replacement options range from inadequate to unavailable. Erica Wheeler is a free agent, but she's a point guard, a completely different positional profile that does nothing to address the wing shortage. Ariel Powers is available but is 31 years old with declining defensive mobility, which is precisely the skill set Indiana would be trying to replace. A wing in the 2025 draft is theoretically possible, but WNBA rookies rarely contribute at championship impact in year 1. Unlike the NBA, there is no G League pipeline. There is no summer league for extended development. Rookies go directly into competition against the best players in the world, and the adjustment period is brutal. The trade route is effectively closed. Indiana already moved their 2025 first-round pick to bring in pieces around Clark. Alyssa Smith has theoretical trade value, but given her statistical decline from 2023 to 2024 from 15-8 to 11-7, with drops across nearly every efficiency metric, any trade would be selling low and potentially requiring Indiana to attach additional assets just to move her contract. Kelsey Mitchell has trade value, but trading Mitchell to replace Hall would represent a net loss so severe it would effectively end the championship conversation entirely. Aliyah Boston is untouchable, Caitlin Clark is untouchable, so you're essentially left with no viable trade assets that can bring back a true Lexi Hall equivalent, without making the team significantly worse. Real quick, if this level of analysis is why you keep coming back to this channel, becoming a member is the best way to make sure we can keep going this deep. Every member directly supports the research that goes into videos like this one. Hit that join button below and help us keep covering what everybody else is sleeping on. Now here's the part of this conversation that connects directly to Caitlin Clark's long-term trajectory in Indiana, and this is where the stakes go from team problem to generational opportunity at risk. Clark's rookie deal runs through the 2027 season. 3 more years of having the most marketable, most watched, most commercially valuable player in women's basketball history on a below-market contract. 3 years where her cap hit is dramatically lower than her actual value to the franchise. 3 years where Indiana theoretically has the financial flexibility to build a genuine championship contender around her at a cost structure that will never exist again. This is the championship window, not the distant future. Right now, these 3 seasons are when Indiana has the most favorable roster construction conditions they will ever have with Caitlin Clark. Once she hits free agency after 2027, she is getting a supermax contract that will consume approximately 40% of the team's salary cap. Every decision Indiana makes from this point forward either maximizes or wastes that window. Losing Lexi Hall doesn't close the window, but it chips away at the foundation of what was supposed to be built during it, and losing Hall and Kelsey Mitchell in the same offseason, which is the nightmare scenario that multiple credible observers are not ruling out, creates a hole in the roster that cannot be filled with available assets. That scenario doesn't just hurt next season, it creates a rebuild dynamic that puts Indiana in catch-up mode for the entirety of Clark's most cost-effective years. The social media ecosystem around this situation has been picking up on exactly this tension. Multiple corners of WNBA Twitter have been connecting the Ionescu follow to broader conversations about Indiana's organizational competency, whether the Fever front office has the financial sophistication to navigate what is becoming one of the most complex roster management challenges in recent WNBA history. Fans who have been watching Indianapolis's cap management closely have been raising red flags for weeks. The Ionescu follow gave those conversations a visible trigger point, and the discourse has been accelerating ever since. Now share this video if you think the Indiana Fever are genuinely at risk of wasting Caitlin Clark's championship window. Because these are the conversations the mainstream coverage is not having. They're focused on the Instagram drama, not on the actual structural problem underneath it. Here is what nobody is talking about in the broader coverage of this situation. The Indiana Fever's most dangerous competitor for Lexi Hall isn't just the New York Liberty, it's the entire architecture of the modern WNBA free agency landscape, which has fundamentally shifted in ways that disadvantage small market teams with multiple large commitments. When you compare Indiana and New York at equal financial offers, say both organizations put $800,000 on the table, the gap between the destinations extends well beyond salary. New York represents a better organizational infrastructure by virtually every measurable standard. Superior facilities, a coaching staff with a championship resume, a front office that has demonstrated the ability to construct and retain championship-level rosters, better city for endorsements, and the brand building that increasingly matters to WNBA players navigating a landscape where NIL and off-court income have become significant factors in career decisions. Hall attended Stanford. She is not from Indiana. Her primary professional connection to Indianapolis runs through her relationship with Caitlin Clark. And Clark is under contract in Indiana regardless of what Hall decides. The hometown discount framing that has dominated some of the coverage around this story is a category error. Hall has no hometown attachment to Indianapolis. She has a teammate attachment to Clark. And while that is meaningful, it is not the same thing as a player sacrificing market value to return to a city they grew up in. Here's how this most likely unfolds. Lexi Hall receives an offer sheet from New York, possibly from Dallas, or another cap space team as a secondary bidder, in the range of $800,000 to $1 million per year. Indiana faces the match or walk decision in a compressed time frame under cap constraints that make matching genuinely difficult without restructuring other parts of the roster. The Fever either accept a significant roster sacrifice elsewhere to retain Hall, or they let her walk and pivot to a combination of minimum contract veterans and draft picks that leave them measurably weaker on the wing. If Indiana lets her walk, New York adds a proven championship-capable 3-and-D wing to a roster that already won a title and is adding size with Fagbenle. The Liberty become more dominant, Indiana becomes less capable of competing when the playoffs arrive, and the window, those 3 precious years of Caitlin Clark on a rookie deal, ticks toward closed before it ever fully opened. The Sabrina Ionescu follow was one notification, but what it represented was the opening move of a competitive intelligence operation that the Liberty have been running methodically. New York knows exactly what Indiana's cap situation looks like. They know the Fever are stretched. They know the Kelsey Mitchell situation is simultaneously demanding attention and resources. Ionescu's follow told Hull, and told the entire league, that New York is interested and capable. That message was received, and Indiana is now in a reactive position in a negotiation. They cannot win on pure financial terms. The question for the coming months is whether the Fever can make a compelling enough organizational argument, stability, Clark's gravity, Indianapolis's growing commercial profile to overcome the salary and destination disadvantage they are operating under based on everything we can see in the numbers. That argument is going to require Lexi Hull to leave significant money on the table for reasons that go beyond basketball. History tells us that rarely happens in this league when the financial gap is real and the alternative destination is New York City. If you're not subscribed yet and you want to be here when this situation develops, when the offer sheets start coming in and Indiana has to make the call, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications right now, because this roster story is going to move fast once the free agency period opens, and you do not want to be getting this analysis secondhand. We will be covering every development, every cap number, and every organizational decision that determines whether Caitlin Clark gets the supporting cast her window demands or watches it drain away one restricted free agent at a time.